Okay, I'm going to start with a little audience interaction. Given the topic of discussion today, building brand loyalty through emotional connection, who here has purchased something off of TikTok shops or Instagram, like whatever like maybe it's the face mask or the gua sha or the wallet my husband just bought, silly. We've all done it. We've all fallen. Now, who here can remember the name of the brand of that product? Really? Well, I can't. I think there's a lot of options for consumers today, right? Like we're constantly being fed, try this new thing, do this, you need that, especially as a proud geriatric millennial that has been telling I need to consume more protein and lift more heavy things. But the brands that see through longevity and really succeed are the ones that can also tap into some emotional connections with their consumers and are more than just a product or a thing, right? And that's why we have this lovely panel of experts to talk about exactly that. I'm going to jump right in, right? So in a world where we have all these choices, you each work for very different brands and very different industries. How do you actually define that emotional connection? What does it look like for your brands?
I'll start. So at Tito's, I think the biggest thing for us is when people are at a bar and they call for Tito's. So a Tito's soda lime, a Tito's martini. We have been so lucky because over the years, people have really shifted from saying they want a vodka soda and they want specifically a Tito's soda lime. So that's really great. And then the other thing too is we actually have a retail store a couple blocks away and an online web store where 100% of net proceeds go to your choice of nonprofit at checkout. So our fans know this. They purchase our merch. They proudly wear it. They are marketing for us. They are showing their passion and their love for the brand, which is really fantastic. And I think all of those things just go such a long way. And, you know, people even name their dogs Tito. So we're very, very lucky to have a very passionate fan base.
I actually told you my old boss named her dog Tito.
Love it.
So part of the club. But similarly, I think for us, it's always just so cool when somebody's wearing Tecovas and you recognize them, and then if you talk about it, there's some element of pride there. And everybody who has a pair seems to always have their Tecovas story about, you know, when they got them in the store and then they were treated to a free drink at the bar, they got them branded. And that is always really special. And people have done, you know, pregnancy announcements or gender reveals with boots and things like that, where it just takes it that level further where there really is an emotional connection then made with the brand.
For us, I know AZ, we're like a house of brands. So AstraZeneca is not a specific brand. We go to market as individual brands depending on a therapeutic area. But I think we look at it more as a behavior change. So anything that we can derive, any type that can change our behavior, is we quantify that as emotion, right? So a lot of times we look at emotion as something that's either hyper sad or hyper positive, et cetera, but like it could just be an experience in itself. So anything that's behavior change is what we quantify as emotional, and that's how we look at it.
Love that. So a lot of that sort of combines, and this has been a theme, I think probably across all of South by this year and maybe previous years too, about the word authenticity, right? We talk about that a lot. How do you tap into those cultural moments in a way that does feel authentic and not opportunistic?
I'll jump in first. Something that we talk about a lot as a team is that just the word authenticity is just so overused right now. And so if you have to say it, then you ain't it. And so for us, it's really a matter of, you know, staying true to who we are. And that means when we opened our store in New York, for example, at the end of last year, we weren't going to New Yorkify Tecovas or start creating product that New Yorkers would want from us. It's really leaning into who you are as a brand and being big and bold in that way. You don't want to sacrifice or dilute yourselves. And so I think for us, it's really just starting to craft this brand world that we're building, and that comes across through, one, we're very much a product-led brand, so it's, you know, from the design itself to the materials that are chosen to the construction methods that we're using or developing to the brand storytelling through any of the creative that we're doing, and even where we're placing our stores. So we just want to make sure that whatever we're doing, it's very much true to the brand. And as a new brand too, we've only been around for 10 years. We're still very much setting the course for who we are. And so what's very important is just the foundation that we're laying now when we want to become a brand that is a heritage brand that does last for generations to come. So we have to be very thoughtful about those choices.
Yeah, on the Tito side of things, we're very intentional about the trends that we lean into. We make sure that it's true to Tito's. So one example is over the past few Thanksgivings, we were noticing that people were posting and memeing about the horrors of marrying into a turkey trot family. And then at the same time, we saw Gen Z posting about bed rotting and couch rotting. And we thought we could have some fun with this. You know, a lot of people were like, I am not from a turkey trot family. Like, we drink cocktails on Thanksgiving morning. So we did the Tito's turkey rot instead. And so people could sign up to do nothing on Thanksgiving except for drink Tito's cocktails with their family. And for every sign up, we donated $5 to Meals on Wheels America up to $1 million. So we donated the full $1 million, which was amazing. And people started these new traditions with their family and with Tito's. It was really special, and it was fun to see everyone posting online, posting in their merch that they bought. So that's a cool example from us.
I think for us, I think you got to be careful what you quantify as a cultural moment. So knowing your customer and your target audience matters, right? So I'll give an example. So we have a drug, Saphnelo, which is like a lupus drug. So culture for them is minorities, mostly women, African American, Hispanic, etc. So that's a way different culture than our respiratory drug or a flu mist drug, right? So so what we do is we make sure we focus on the audience first and make sure what we're culturally aligning to is actually aligned to the audience that we're trying to represent, especially in something as sensitive as healthcare or anything that's doing with your personal disease states, et cetera. So I always caution people, when you think of cultural moments, we're not going to, for something that's target audience is a 55 plus, we're not going to do the new TikTok dance, right? But it's like, you got to make sure the culture actually fits the target audience.
Yeah, Michael, you and our earlier discussion talked about the pharmaceutical category forever has been like, well, here's patient story, here's another patient story, here's a patient story, here's some clinical data. And you had a really interesting, so I'm going to invite you to share with the group on like the evolution of that and how the experience with your brand is actually more than just the patient.
Yeah, I think traditionally when you think of emotion and you think of pharma, healthcare, you think of somebody's sob story or someone's victory story, right? Like, I conquered cancer, which there's nothing you can tell a better story than that, right? But I think I always like to use like fast food. Fast food is always something I go to with my leadership team. It's like McDonald's, Wendy's, et cetera. But when you think of the best, you always say Chick-fil-A. And it's not because they tell a more better stop story. It's because the actual experience brings out a level of emotion, right? Like, when you go there, everybody's so friendly and so I think sometimes when you think about emotion, why I defined it as a behavior changes, you don't necessarily need to hyper focus on stories, but simply something that's so interpersonal to someone. But if we can provide a certain type of experience with us as a brand or us as a company, you'll come back, right? And that's the Chick-fil-A story I always say. It's like, you go to Chick-fil-A, you get 100 smiles, 100 thank yous before you even get your food, right? And so it just makes it a little bit better than McDonald's or whatever else you might like. So I think that's the uniqueness about where pharma is going. It's like, we have to compete in the same way as others do as far as customer experience, not just like, oh, you've accomplished this, because drugs do that. Drugs are supposed to make your life better, right? So
AstraZeneca is the Chick-fil-A of pharma. It's the take.
Trying to be.
I love that. So I want to double click on something you said too, Allie. And I think in the spirits category, especially, it's really easy to get drawn into cultural moments, and there's like 1,000 celebrity spirits now, and there are parties of it all. But Tito's doesn't do that, right? And still experiences a ton of success. And so I want to hear the reasoning and the thinking behind that, but also this marriage with Lalo Tequila that has a similar vibe, and how like that came to be.
Yeah, so Tito's got its start here in Austin almost 30 years ago. And our founder, Tito Beverage, he started the first legal distillery in Texas.
Greatest name ever.
And it took a really long time to get it off the ground. And it was really the local Austin community that lifted him up. And this is where he got his start. And, you know, the bartenders supported him. His friends supported him, even though they all thought he was crazy. And this Texas vodka thing was never going to work. And so, you know, as we expanded across the country, we always took a really community-focused approach, made sure that we were rooted in local traditions, etc. And our fans have always been so important to us because they are the ones who got us to where we are today. We definitely grew by word of mouth. You know, before I worked at Tito's, I remember my very first time I came to Austin, and I saw the Tito's little plaque at the bar, and I was like, I have to try this Austin vodka. And I loved it, and I went home to Los Angeles, told my husband about it, told all my friends about it. So, you know, even before working at Tito's, I was one of those huge super fans. And what we try and do is we really treat all of our fans like the VIPs that they are. We like to treat them like influencers. Our team does an amazing job of sending out swag packages. We invite fans to our lounges at Austin City Limits, at Lollapalooza. So we've really, you know, took care of the people that got us to where we are today. And then for Lalo Tequila, we just got majority acquisition of Lalo Tequila in the fall. And Lalo Tequila is also a brand that came up in Austin. And our founder, Tito, was actually friends and mentors with the founders of Lalo. So there's so many similarities between the two brands. It really is like a fantastic marriage and a great brand fit for us to be together now. So excited to see what the future holds with both brands.
Never, ever underestimate the power of Texas, loving Texas. I say that as a Texan, so I'm not too. I think Tecovas has a similar story in that you're, you know, born in Texas, but going against some really long historied heritage brands, if you think about the boot and fashion space, and still somehow disrupted that. Please share.
Well, when Paul, our founder, created the brand 10 plus years ago now, just over 10 years, you know, he wanted to make cowboy boots just more common. We wanted to provide an easier entry point to people who, you know, one might be, you know, too intimidated to wear boots or to try boots, and also didn't think that all boots warranted a $1,000 plus price tag. And so that was really what he set out to disrupt. And we were founded as a direct-to-consumer brand. And then in 2019, we opened our first store. We had 7 leases signed going into COVID, and we followed through with those, and have really expanded since then. And we've you know, ended last year with now 56 stores across the country and continuing to grow. But really, I think just going back to this story about our customers, we really lean in as a brand to what we call radical hospitality and wanting to make sure that every experience that a customer has, whether they're purchasing boots from us online or coming into the store, is just a really incredible experience. So we invest very heavily in our store employee training to make sure that they know the ins and outs of all of our boots, all of the materials that we wear, you know, how to wear the boots, how they should fit. And that goes across all of our categories because now we're in apparel and cowboy hats as well, and want to just give everyone who comes in that really fantastic experience so that you can come in and, again, you could never have ever worn a pair of boots in your life, or you can be generational. You're wearing boots that your dad passed down to you, and you still want to wear a pair of boots that we have. And I think what's so interesting is, you know, yes, there are brands that have been around. The first cowboy boots were in invented in 1875. So we're definitely the newer player on the scene. But we always just say we want more boots on feet. So we don't really care where you're buying them from, as long as like we're seeing more boots out there. We love it. And I think when you have the boots, you're walking taller, and we just want to be a very welcoming brand. So you can come in and learn about the product and sit down and have a drink and not feel like you're being sold to. It might take you a couple months before you ever decide that, okay, I know what pair of boots I want, or I want a pair of boots at all. But that's what I think is really helping to continue to build our brand in a way that feels just really natural and comfortable. And again, just this idea of being very welcoming instead of it being an intimidating experience.
Yes, it helps that they're comfortable, which I think plug for Tecovas. A lot of those older brands, not so much.
I have 7 pairs.
Yeah. I mean, truly different. I love the story of like starting in a DTC world, but expanding quite rapidly into retail when a lot of brands are doing the exact opposite and seeing the success that that decision has made. At Atmosphere, we're streaming TV for out-of-home places and spaces, so we're seeing a similar trend in this, like, we call it the great reconnection, right? People are getting back, like, we're coming out of COVID, we're thirsty for, pun intended, human connection, and those human connections are happening outside of the home in retail and bars and gyms, and how brands can show up in those spaces is also changing, right? Michael, I want to get back to you because you'd mentioned to us in our previous conversation, but also like that you sit in an interesting role as an omni-channel presence, which makes me think of God, no pressure. But the way you described it also felt like, oh, well, that's interesting. He's so, and I'm going to make you correct me, probably, I'm probably going to do this wrong, but like, you are looking at the larger landscape across your portfolio of brands, but also across all of the touch points that a consumer might experience your brands. As you mentioned earlier, it could be, customer experience or media, et cetera. How are you finding the through thread and sort of shining a light on it so that all of your teams are marching in the right direction?
Sure. I think it starts with like the customer, right? And customer preference and what the customer values. So I'll use an example that I talked through this morning in like at a round table that I was on, right? And certain things like banners or display or anything like that, and with AI and stuff, you just generate a lot of content, right? And that's noise, but essentially we're doom scrollers now, right? So the customer just is used to seeing a lot of things. So AI that to the death, right? But I think you got to realize is certain touch points, a customer expects something a little bit different. And one of the things that we've been highly or overly investing in as a pharma company is the idea of experience in general, right? So I have my experiential person right now, Gabby from Factory 360, just a quick shout out to her. But the idea of building an actual, like you said, people want to reconnect, et cetera. So because I get to see across different touch points, whether it's TV, whether it's web, owned properties, or activations, et cetera, it's like building the idea of a actual literal connection. So activation with digital to scale is like where we're driving to, because that's where you actually expect something different. You expect a level of personalization. You expect a level of what's in it for me. If you overinvest in some of these other channels where you doom scroll, it's like you got to think of where your energy, your resources are going to, right? So the mindset is, I think the average person spends 0.5 seconds on a post. Literally 0.5 seconds. What can you get in 0.5 seconds other than the brand name, right? So the idea is like, how do you find places where people expect more and give them even more than they expect?
What's the answer to that?
So the best way I like to think of it is you give people a place where they can connect either with individually or in real time, in real life. And then the best thing you can play off of that is the empathy or sympathy that comes with it. So you drive that and share that with everybody else, right? So it's like a human aspect of it, right? Especially nowadays when the rise of AI and generative content, et cetera, like that, it's like, where can you still get that human element And so activation is where we tend to overemphasize on, at least right now. So for me, like I said, emotion is behavior change. The best way to drive behavior change is build relationships. The best way to build relationships is this, like, this type of connection.
That made me feel good. I could not agree more. Sorry, now I don't even know where I am. I was fully into that. So I was listening to a panel across the street, actually. It was about AI. You said AI identity, so you brought it up, and now we can go there. But that was one of the themes from that panel as well, is, okay, we've got AI to do maybe some of the heavy lifting, but it's never going to replace that, not only human element to make sure what's going on in the world makes sense and is good and on brand and all the things, but also, only humans know how to connect with other humans. How are you guys thinking about that? Are you thinking about that? Is AI playing a big role in your creative or strategies?
We're tapping into AI a lot right now, but more so on the back end, business operations, how the team works. We actually, as an entire marketing department, including our digital team, our creative team, and our brand team, just participated in what we internally called AI Week. And it was just a chance because we had done a survey of the company earlier to find out how comfortable are people with AI? Have you even started using AI in any ways in your life? And so we just wanted to give everybody an opportunity to start to explore and not be afraid to test things out. And what does it look like if you're using Claude? And we have, no plans whatsoever to incorporate AI into our creative strategy or things like that. But how can we utilize it to just help our day-to-day? What are the things that can be automated that give us the space and bandwidth to actually be better at the jobs that we're doing? And, for us being brand team and creative, we want to be out there. We don't want to be sitting in a room, looking at screens, whiteboarding ideas. We want the creative team out there actually creating. We want the brand team, ideating what their next activation is going to be. So I think it's an incredibly important tool. I'm excited to see what we're going to continue to unlock from a business perspective. And most importantly, I'm very excited about the team just having the ability and the encouragement of the company to start to lean in and just try and test different things, because I think that's just such a hurdle to get over at first too, of what does this mean, especially when we're in brand and creative roles of are these going to take our jobs? And so even at the end, we were asking everyone, what did you learn that was surprising to you about AI that can be helpful to you, and what did you learn is something that is a skill of yours or something that you do as your job that AI will never take away? And so it was just really incredible to hear everyone, again, from across the team, be able to share some of the things that they've unlocked.
Allie.
So I think that's very well said. We are using AI on the back end as well, but I feel like we're seeing a lot of consumer backlash to using it in creative. And I know for me personally, my Instagram Explore page will sometimes have a cat cooking pasta, and I'm like, why am I seeing this? Why is this? It's very creepy. But there's, a lot of consumer backlash to that. And, on the flip side, consumers are so savvy to marketing now. And, you see so much across brands, kudos to the marketing team. Our marketing team deserves a raise. So just being very aware of that. And people want to see human created things, I think.
I think the one thing I'll add is AI is an enabler, not a solution, right? So if you think about it, there's a couple things I want to say about this. Number one, it can't be a dirty word anymore, right? So, because if you're not going to leverage it, someone is. So how do you gain a competitive advantage if someone else is? So you have to figure out how you bridge that gap regardless. And depending on what particular aspect you use it in will change drastically. And I go back to the idea of customer expectation, right? So I always think, I think through is, if you're looking at something on a feed, right? Something that's, if you want to leverage AI, that's highly not as disruptive as if a patient story or something that's more unique to or using AI as a human interface, right? So you just had to understand what they're looking for and what they're expecting and try to match that. And I challenge my teams to think that through, because there is a reality that to compete, you have to leverage this particular tool. And to do so well, you have to understand what value you can get from it or what value you can lose from it. I think that is the most important piece. So when you think about AI, you can lose a lot when it comes to human connection, or when you think about some of these deep fakes or things like that. But you can gain a lot of efficiency and time savings when you're just pushing out something that says free drinks on Friday. You know what I mean? Like you got to think about where that comes in. So it's definitely an enabler, not a solution. It definitely should be attached to some level of value or ROI on the back end that you'll gain from it. And you just got to think through is like, what is the expectation I'm trying to manage, or I'm trying to over exaggerate? Yeah.
Or am I just doing this to do this?
Yeah.
I think another maybe theme for our panel is themes that I've heard a lot at South by just these past couple of days is this moving at the speed of culture. How do we move at the speed of culture? How do we move at the speed? How do you stay relevant? And we talked about this even in our prep a little bit of like, but also not falling prey to the pressure to partnerships, right? Like we sit on these panels, or you sit and listen to them all week. All these brands doing really cool things. There's like jeans partnering with queso. I don't know. And some of them are really great. We heard from Chili's yesterday, Jesse at Chili's, who I was captivated what they've done to that brand in such a short amount of time. And a lot of it was through these really cool partnerships that are like they actually are making that brand relevant again. And I think if you're a marketer sitting in the audience, hearing about other uses of AI or all these really cool partnerships, you then feel pressured, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, to say like, oh, well, what am I going to do? And what are we going to do? And then what's the next thing? And what's the next thing? I know we have some examples, some great ones, but how do you think about those in your strategy?
So right now, I think what we say no to is maybe more important than what we're saying yes to. And, again, it kind of goes back to the fact that we are just still such a very new brand. And as we are setting the foundation and the DNA of who we are, just establishing ourselves, we're being very cognizant of not wanting to just, dilute that by having too many different partnerships, being too many places all of the time, everywhere, all at once. And so, we really look at, brand first. So what are the events, what are the experiences that we're creating first for our customer? And again, just leaning into this idea of radical hospitality and making sure that we treat everyone, well and above and beyond their expectations. And I don't know, I think that as we continue to grow, we're going to continue to have just really interesting opportunities to lean into, but wanting to make sure that we're approaching them in a way that is, again, what is going to provide the most value to a customer or a potential customer? And are we saying something that's new, or are we doing something because, you can't look any which way without seeing a new brand collaboration or a new product and all of these different things? And even for us, something that we talk about internally is people don't need more things. And so even that's a way of respecting our customer by, again, just going back, product first, product-led company. We want to make product that's going to last you a lifetime. And that's really what, is a way of respecting our customers, that, if you're investing, and it is an investment, they might not be $1,000 boots, but $350 for a pair of boots is, pricey. So we want to show you how to take care of them. And so I think that, yes, there's definitely just this element of, doing right by the customer and not doing things just for the sake of, oh, here's a quick win by, doing this quick collaboration. Or if we said yes to every collaboration, we might have one going like every day of the year. There might be multiple launches in a day, but you're just going to be like adding to the noise and distraction. And again, talking about these like thumb moments of like how quickly people are scrolling through their phones in any given moment when we're looking on TikTok or Instagram, like that's just truly not providing much value to anyone. And so that's really how we like to approach anything that we're doing, whether it's our design team coming up with a new product or whether it's the marketing team determining like what our campaign is going to be, just ensuring that, again, putting the customer first and making sure that we have an actual point of view and we're not just tapping into something because culture is moving so quickly.
And I think, too, on the topic of collaborations, just paying attention to what the consumer is telling you. So one example for us is we were observing that so many people were making Tito's cocktails with Poppy, the modern soda brand. And I personally love Poppy, and so we reached out to
Also
them.
based in Austin.
They are based in Austin as well. And we came up with this mutually beneficial collaboration where we were able to collaborate on in-store displays with Poppy and Tito's. And we were able to amplify that on social with, fun Tito's and Poppy cocktails where you take the top off and make something very aesthetic. So it wasn't like this big splashy, like new product or, joke or anything, but it just is something that made sense day to day.
I think what both you guys said is excellent. I think the way I look at it is very simply like 3 golden rules for us is like, number 1, like I mentioned before, culture, understand your audience, so understand where the culture is coming from. Number 2, be humble enough to know that you don't drive culture. None of us do. So none of the brands represented at Brand Innovators drives culture. Just understand that very much. And then I think number 3 is to recognize what value you can add to, because if you can't add value, it's detrimental. There is no middle ground here. It's either you're adding to or you're taking away from. So once again, know your customer so you know what the culture actually is. Be humble enough to understand that you don't drive the culture, and then you're just part of it. And then number 3 is like, can you actually add value here, or is this something you probably need to sit out?
You guys write that down. Yeah, like I mean, again, we're sort of in it at South by. It's so easy to chase a headline or a PR story or something, right? But staying true to the customer and being an value add. We have time for one quick rapid fire. I didn't prep you for this. It won't be hard. But is there a brand that you are fiercely loyal to? I'll start while you think about it, because I thought of this question and then I was like, what would my answer be? And immediately I started going to beauty products or like toothpaste. I was somewhere and I use like Crest, and I had to use somebody else's brand. It like tasted bad. It felt weird. It felt off brand for me and myself. Like there are brands that have somehow like intrinsically become part of us. What are those for you?
The one that came to mind immediately was Trader Joe's, because I'm like, I just have to go every week. It's just part of, and it's interesting too, because I started thinking about it as you asked the question. I'm like, so funny that it has become such a part of my life, and it's a place that I don't ever really see advertising for, and there's no influencers telling me to go shop at Trader Joe's. But I go and I have a great conversation every time I'm getting checked out, and have you tried that before? This is so good. And I love that experience, as long as we're not like, elbowing each other down the aisles. But no, that's fine.
I would say Anthropologie. I've been a huge Anthropologie fan for probably over 17 years, and it's just very easy. I know if I peruse the website, I will always find something that I need, and I'll get compliments on it. So
Is that Anthropologie?
yes.
I would go with Marriott. So for me, I think the attention to detail matters. And when you think about something travel and you think about a home away from home, the ability for them to make you feel like that you are actually at home and that you can function in that particular regard, I think is a beautiful thing. And I think the idea of how they activate makes a lot of sense as well. They made very choiceful decisions in where they expanded to as well. So
And the
Marriott.
loyalty program.
Yes.
Like they're rewarding you for your loyalty. That helps. All right. I thank you guys
Great
so
job.
much. I love
Thank
this.
you.
Yes.
Great job. Bobbi, you should be a professional moderator.